Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder, Path Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacchino. Welcome, happy Sunday, everybody. Another week, first full trading week in April. We had one day on Friday, but first full trading week, historically April. Very bullish unless you're in a bear market. So we'll see how this week turns out. By the way, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and hitting the like button. Longer term viewers and subscribers, please like the videos and leave some comments. So, hello, Davey, I see. Transportation index is roughly 77.5%, not 75% drop. That would be a plenty of a drop. 7.5% drop last week. The biggest hit components of the index were JB Hunt, Landstar Systems, Norfolk Southern, Ryder, and CSX. So a couple of the railroads in there. And then you follow it up with, according to Sun Transportation Index, is used by market participants as leading economic indicator. Are we ready to start the market decline you've been predicting over the past few weeks? Funny thing is, I actually think we could have a couple more days of down to choppy sideways and then resume a rally short term. But we'll have to let the price action dictate. There's no major topping pattern yet. There is no major topping pattern yet, so we shall see. There was a long-term sell signal, but there's no major short-term, let me clarify, no major short-term topping pattern. Hello, Ken. Welcome. Hello, Christoph. Hope everything is wonderful overseas. How are you doing? So, let's see. By the way, you brought up the transportation index. If you haven't watched already, and you probably didn't get a chance to watch the full thing, but my weekly sector overview has gone up. So please check that. That was a pre-recorded one I did a little while ago. So that's a nice little pre-recording to look at, and then go from there with the sector overview. So, and I do cover the transportation sector. It's still not tipped into a long-term sell signal, but it's getting closer. We can just peek at that, actually. We can peek at that for everybody here. Where is it? Where's the transportation? Where is it? That's retail. IYT, there we go. IYT longer term, barely holding in. We barely missed having a sell signal here, but rolling over again. So I am keeping an eye for a longer term sell signal, but one has not triggered yet. What was not good is it's back below the 200 on this, and it tried to pop out of this consolidation and straight back in it. So that is not bullish at all, at least in the short term, but it's still in the bigger consolidation pattern, and we don't technically have a long-term sell signal yet. So let's get back to the main watch list. S&P. I actually love 3-bar pullbacks with a slight little potential reversal bar on Friday. Cycle stuff still rolling over, so we could potentially see new lows. I will be watching this 200 to 44.80 to about 44.50. That's what I'm keeping an eye out for with that. And longer term, just to keep this in perspective, we're still in neutral mode on the longer term. Let's just also take a look. It might be a quiet week. Let's tie in this economic calendar to this. So tomorrow we have factory order month over month. So we'll have to see how that comes in at minus 0.5%. That's not a huge one. Tuesday, ISM non-manufacturing, that's the biggest one. Then you have a couple more Fed speakers. So we have Fed speakers, which can't predict how the market's going to react because I don't know what they're going to say. And then even if we knew what they were going to say, don't know how the market's going to react. Tuesday, you have 4 Fed speakers, at least on this schedule. Wednesday, you have a Fed speaker in the morning. Big thing is the FOMC minutes, but I don't think there's going to be any surprises there. But that's pretty much the biggest thing all week. Thursday, jobless claims, another Fed speech, 4 Fed speaking on Thursday. There's just a lot of Fed speak. And then Friday, just wholesale inventory. So you don't have a lot there. Just a recap of Friday, mixed, slightly up to mixed. Visa, MasterCard were some of the outperformers on Friday. But what's interesting is in the financial XLF, again, watch the sector overview. The financials are getting weak, except for, like, especially some banks are weakening again, but your payment processing is strengthening up a bit. So that's interesting. FOMC, by the way, still about 70%. It's going to be a 50 basis point hike unless something drastically changes. It's going to be 50 basis point, and we'll check on this tomorrow morning, but essentially we're at neutral. When we're this close, we're at neutral gamma. So you start making a run below about 45.37. It's tipped slightly in the negative, but you don't start getting real negative until it doesn't start to really accelerate till below 4,500 starts it, but 44.50 really gets going. Now, to the upside, you don't really get into deep positive gamma until about 4,600. All right, so we're at neutral. We've got the 3-day pullback. I will watch, especially if we get a close above Friday's high, then that could be a little resumptive trend move. If you want to look at something shorter term, remember the key area is we already at a significant level right there, but right about 45.82. What's a warning sign before that? A warning sign before that is we start getting above the 4-hour rotation zone. Now, we had this, I wanted to review something else. I touched on this in the classroom session on Friday. I just want to review this. Now, this is perfect for whether you're in a flag pattern or a horizontal channel or just support resistance. This is when I talk about a retest, a break and then a retest. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So we had this channel on Friday, or a flag really. Breakdown, retest, and rollover. This, take a snapshot on your charts. This is exactly a bread and butter pattern. All right. Breakdown of a significant channel and held there, broke it, retest, and then roll over. That's the bread. That's why I left that up there. I just wanted to review that for everybody. That's the exact kind of play you're looking for. Now, coming in here, almost triggered an aggressive buy on Friday, again, against the rotation zone. I'm going to be watching for follow through on Monday. So my key levels see upside 45.47 and 45.52, especially overnight on a rally. If we do dip back down, key supports coming back into me at 45.13, then the lows on Friday and up to 4,500. So that is very key. You see here, we almost got down to that harmonic reversal. Next bar triggered off the intermediate harmonic and reversed up. Now, if we do pull back or chop sideways with slightly lower, what am I watching for? Again, we have the key 200 in the bottom of the rotation zone. So on a closing basis, I don't necessarily want to see a strong close below the 200, which is coming in about 44.80. And we have 44.85 harmonic. So even if we decline and even if we come down and touch the rotation zone at 44.60, I'm still going to watch for that close back above the 200. But this could be interesting for a pullback and then some more higher price action going into April. Now remember, there are no earnings this week. There are earnings this week, but no major earnings. I think only there's one thing, and I'll have to look that up. But next week really starts full-blown earnings season again. So there is something, I'll have to double check on that. I'll mention it tomorrow morning. But that's why it's somewhat of a quiet week, besides the Fed speakers and the meeting minutes. Let's take a look at that Nasdaq. Again, nice three-bar pullback in the rotation zone. Not as strong a close, but still closing above the rotation zone. So your key overhead resistance in here, again, we had that breakdown from the channel there, that flag. Key area to watch for on the Nasdaq is about 15,063. That once you get a close above there, really favors a continued run to the most recent highs. Until then, what am I watching? Not those. We just drop down. We got this little pausing bar. So overnight into tomorrow morning, I'm keeping an eye at 14,889. We had a prior significant level there, and now the harmonic, then 14,908. Then that still takes us into the rotation zone to the downside. If we do roll over, I'll be watching about 14,800, then a retest of the low area coming in at 14,725. But it is in the daily rotation zone. Also, you got a close above Friday's high. That is a nice rotation entry for at least a retest of the 20 or the 200 day, about 51.45. And then I'd be targeting this 15,202 to the upside. Now, longer term, we could still see another push higher and then potentially form double tops. That's a ways off, but that's a pattern I will be keeping an eye on, which then would be looking for a stronger sell in the future. To the upside now, just have to reduce those. So before we had a forward, now we have a really nice potentially reverse box, but those levels are a ways off. Where I don't want to see a close below on the daily is about 14,490. That would be below the rotation zone and below the 50. So that would substantially knock out the bull case. With that being said, could you pull back more before we do the resumption? Yes, that's why I'm still expecting potentially horizontal price action to choppy down until we trigger a buy signal. Dow, again, breakdown from that bear flag. Nice little rally back. Big market imbalance at the close on Friday. So there's a lot of buying into the close. Rotation back up from the rotation zone. No major signal here based off of let me double check that. There might have been. Yes, there actually was a buy pattern. That's why I thought there was an aggressive buy on Friday. I'm looking for follow through on Sunday, but that will be in the rotation zone. The only thing against this is it gets more aggressive because the Dow's been lagging a bit and back below the 200. But the key level to get really bullish in the Dow for me is above 34,970. Until there, watching for overnight 34,750, then up to about 34,857. This is another great area to do your reverse harmonics. And that just favors that 34,850, 34,857, and the declining rotation zone on the 4 hour. If we do not rally, major support coming in at 34,424 to 34,382. That's the key area. Don't want to see a close below about 34,250 in the Dow, though. That definitely changes, because that would be below the 50 to below the 21, which is the bottom of the rotation zone, and below this key support area, and below the 37.5. So then I'd really start watching for a bigger pullback. Russell, again, we hit the targets on that breakout play, pulling back the rotation zone. Everything else for me is a shorter term play on the Russell. Funny enough is this technically does qualify as a little horribly sloppy double, even with this. So I am keeping an eye out for that for shorter term plays. And where would that potentially take it? Not even back to the highs next week. 2103, 2110, and 2116.5 are the key levels. If you get a move back down below 2067, though, that is off the table. Let's see. What do I have that? Here's your Dax Futures. Again, still holding up above the midpoint of this channel. If we get a strong close below about 14,350, I'm watching for definitely a retest of 14,185. And then if we break down below there, 13,970 area. It's so far holding the narrow rotation zone. So what would confirm that to me would be a close back above 14,500 14,600. 14,600, I'd be watching for a retest of this high area, about 14,854 in the Dax Futures. Crude, I went over commodities in detail, somewhat in detail, and ags in detail. The only thing I have short term, I'm actually shifting more and more to bearish mode, but the only bullish, this is still potentially in play unless we roll lower tonight, because then that would be a triple bottom on the 1 hour. If we just pop up 101.50 is the key area, 103, 103, 103.86 would be my targets, the upside. The problem is we're against the 4 hour rotation zone, and the daily is back above again, the first cross. So this is actually to getting into the area of consolidations or rallies are potentially in the short term to be sold and watch for lower prices. Would I be aggressively selling rallies in this? No. I'd be watching. There's some short-term plays, but then longer term, I'm watching for the bigger pullback in this. And by the way, we did break down from the triangle pattern, but closed above the 50. And this is what I hate about triangle patterns, because this was a stopping point. Then even if it breaks lower, this is a stopping point. So you have to be really nimble in trading this. And if you pop back in here with this double, you still technically then could get a redraw of the triangle pattern. It just widens a bit. That's why they're so challenging to trade, and they're nearly a 50-50 breakout breakdown scenario. They don't give you much of an edge. I'm putting it up there because a lot of people like to watch them. Gold, I'm actually watching for a continued bigger pullback in gold based off this price action. Again, I trade this around a core position, so I don't mind pullbacks and then rallies and pullbacks and rallies, because it just helps you to harvest some back and forth price action while you're waiting for the bigger, longer term move. And we are in our portfolio still long gold and silver, 1904, and then I would love it to drop to 1877. That would be a fantastic little outcome. By the way, we still don't have the final target on the Head and Shoulders, and it still is in play. Silver, again, started a new position in the portfolio, but watching for a bigger pullback. I would love to see it actually get back to 23.75. Still no stop out on the Head and Shoulders. It's just hit the first and second targets. I'm actually starting to keep an eye on copper again, especially if we can get a rotation back above about 44.78. Notes, the double hit the first and second, pulling back a bit. It's still in play for the third target, and I'm actually getting more and more bullish on notes and bonds in the short term, and then potentially bearish again, but I am watching for at least a continued bounce. We are still way off the rotation zone. We could theoretically bounce here. Now, the key area for me is if we get a close below 121.25, 121.24.5, then I start watching for a retest of the lows. Until there, we still have the double in play. It's just finding resistance from the daily rotation zone. Dollar index, still holding. It's now a triple top though with all this topping. I know we still have a double on but this is with this price action. It's just we had a potential double on the weekly, but this has now turned essentially into a horizontal channel. So 97.87 to the downside, about 99.30 to the upside. So those are my key levels. And I love to watch the midpoints using the candle bodies as the horizontal channel. I love watching the midpoint above the midpoint. I like to target the high area, below the midpoint, back to the low area. And you could easily play that with the Euro US dollar. VIX, again, coming up to daily rotation zone, rotation down, staying below the 200. So still no fear in the market. Even with Friday's price action, there's just nothing. Even in the sell-off, there's just no fear. Everything's hunky-dory. In order for that to change, I'd need to move above 21.52. Mega caps, pull back to the rotation zone, nice pausing bar. So going to watch for that to resume potentially. Let me go over to the ratios. You see here's mega cap index, still above the rotation zone, still above the 50. Nice little pullback. We had that double that went to full target. I'm just watching if we do get a resumption especially here's your early warning sign. And you can do this. It's MGK divided by SPY. That's the ratio. A move back above about 0.5, whatever this fraction is. It doesn't show me far enough out, but 0.52 something is a short-term buy. A break below the lower end of this, we mark that off, is a continued pullback in mega caps. What? I'll get to those one in a second. Value versus growth, nice little pullback. Again, not quite to the rotation zone, so could it pull back a little more? 192. If we do get a little further pullback, I'm still watching for a potential pull rotation back up in growth. When I will stop watching for that is a break below this or a close below the rotation zone, about 191 on VUG divided by VTV. IVW divided by IVE, which is another just set of funds that we have growth versus value. A little deeper into that rotation zone, but that rotation zone coming down to this 0.8, that's key support. A rotation back up, then I will watch for one final push higher in that. Why do I bring that up? Because I am watching, I put this at the end of the sector overview too. Potential buy signal, nice pullback in with Apple. Remember we had that shorter double top that triggered, went to all the targets. In a flag pattern, pulling back against the 4-hour rotation zone. We do have a 4-hour buy above the high of 174.88 on a closing basis. We have a daily buy above the high from Friday, 174.88. Into the rotation zone, pull back to another key support level. If you want to put your longer term harmonics on here, coming right down to 25% harmonic and closing up. So this is a potential. If this doesn't trigger tomorrow, it still could be in a trigger. If we do pull back even tomorrow or sideways to choppy low, it could be in place on a daily buy for the next couple days. Please keep that in mind. I will be watching for that. Does that mean it's going to new highs? No, that means we're going to possibly test the most recent high area, which especially if we break above, because you could break above this flag pattern. Where's the key areas that I'm watching? The key areas I'm watching if this does trigger, again, is the first level of resistance to definitely move up stops is about 175.80. And then move up stop again about 176.73. And then I'll really start, if we get a close above 176.73, I'm targeting the high area of about 178.75 to 179.60. So these are short-term plays. These are not long-term. I'm buying and walking away for a year. Another one, I'm keeping an eye on Meta. We've hit the first and second targets, had this little double top. See this little double top within this major double bottom pattern? So this is a double within a double. This is why you use the targets. Coming back, see you have the targets on there. So I'm watching for the original double bottom to re-trigger. Now, could this pull back more? Easily, I'm still keeping an eye at 220 if it pulls back more. But that doesn't even invalidate it. It could technically pull back to about 217.40 and still rotate back up. I am keeping an eye on this still for a potential push higher. It stalled out against the weekly rotation zone, but we have a lot of magnets overhead. So if we do start getting a rally, and not necessarily tomorrow, but this week, that could be another little short-term play. Again, educational purposes only, can't give you specific trading advice, because I don't know you, nor your account size, nor your time frames, nor your risk tolerance. Did you get that from that stupid tweet from, I saw a tweet from earlier. Yeah, year over year up 69, and then they were comparing it to the North American production numbers, which they're, yeah, I'll take a look at Tesla. And by the way, they missed the original was 325. Would they come in at 310s and change? And then people revised it lower, going right into the delivery at 310, which amazingly enough was prompted, and then they slipped, but they missed 325, and that's the number I was going off of their miss. I'm expecting one more push higher now, especially tomorrow with this little flag pattern. And then that's probably at least a potential top for this run up. What would change that? You got to break below this. Let me get to the shorter term. We're still in this flag pattern you see here. What changes it for me? You get a you start breaking down either intraday with momentum below the low of this gap bar, because then I target the gap fill. Low is 105.369. Then I trigger the gap fill, which takes me back down to 10.11 roughly. What I'm watching for tomorrow is even it may even gap up, even though it's just a slight beat of the 310 number, but a miss of 325. I am watching for a retest of the highs, and if we gap above there, the next major target is 1133. And then if you want to know, this is also a great place to use reverse harmonics. Reverse harmonics, so 1120 to 1126, definitely an area if you're still long to raise a stop then. Why? Because if you get above here, this is a big corrective pattern with this little flag here coming in. You don't want it to drop back in this area. So trailing a stop, definitely rate, again, I can't tell you exactly what to do. How would I position myself? From a long perspective, if I was in for just a swing move, I'd be moving up my stops again to more aggressively to at least above. I'd take them above 1100 at this point on a closing basis. You get a close on a 4-hour or daily back below 1100. That's where I would trail out. Until then, I would still have my stops down here going into tomorrow with this key low. And then if it rallies up through this flag, especially pre-market, and hits these levels, start moving it up towards that 1100. Next levels above there, we have 1135 minor, but 1160 is major. And you have, for the people who follow stuff based off of, we have a really nice little possible 5-wave up move pattern on this. So keep that in mind with Tesla. Also, short-term oscillators favoring another turn up, longer term favoring a push higher with then a potential divergence setup. So there's, again, slightly bullish and then shifting to potentially longer term bearish again. Hey, Dan Jet, there is your Tesla analysis. Other stuff I'm not really, let's just check in on some of those other mega cat. Amazon, we still do have the double in play, just pulling back to the breakout area. The only negative was back below the 200, but I'm still going to see, again, for shorter term plays above 33.35, back above the 200. It would just be a breakout play again on a shorter term basis to retest some of these key areas. Major next resistance is 34.52, then 35.61. Where you don't want to see it drop below is really on a closing basis about 31.80. You could even go to 31.63 area, but I wouldn't want it below about 31.87. But we'll watch for a short term play in still Amazon. What else do we have? Google, a lot of these formations are the same. Remember, double on the weekly with Google. This right here, even though it's a sloppy triple on the daily. Coming up that first target and reversing. So right now we're back to this key area. By the way, above, let's see here. You still have to get a close just for the morning tomorrow. If you start getting a rotation up and then a close above, what's this high? A close above 28.23 is a continuation move for a retest of this high most recent area. This was also stop reduction for this sloppy double pattern, but still valid on the weekly. What else do we have? One I don't have anything strong yet is NVIDIA. Remember, we had that little double top hitting all the targets, then continuing lower. this is a weak bounce so far to me, and this is a bigger pullback. By the way, that was not a double, but a bigger pullback. It really has to get above 273 before I'm interested in NVIDIA again, just with the depth of this pullback. And if it does get a strong rally tomorrow, a close above the high of Friday is a short-term buy pattern coming out with a percent B buy out of the daily rotation zone. So that's some other stuff just to take a look at. You're very welcome, Josh. Mike, when you draw gain retracements for a just call them harmonics from this point. I don't really name them GAN is because he did a lot with 12.5% increments, but he doesn't use them the same I do. I just did that for a long time to get people interested. They're really just harmonics. If you start at the top of the candle prior to the gap. When you're doing gaps, you keep raising. Let me go back to Tesla because we still have a gap left behind. So initially with Tesla, you always go from the prior close, not from the low or anything before it. So initially it would be here, then it would be here. Until you get the close below 62.5, you continue to move it higher. So still technically it's ratcheted up to here. Okay? Okay, Amit? So the 62.5 is right here. What's 1049.74? What's my early warning sign? You start breaking below this area though, then that's good. So many people are focused on that. I will start targeting the gap fill, but for the statistically to get it relevant, you need at least a close below 1049.64 area. All right, so that's very key. That's how you do it. You keep ratcheting it up, and the opposite is you always keep it anchored to the close. Not to the lows or anything else before it, but to the close. That's how it's been tested out. You are welcome. Christoph, any thoughts on the short side? QCOM. Yes, I do have thoughts. That was old. Ignore that. That was from this potential double that never triggered. QCOM from the short side. We're back below. By the way, this is technically a potential double, just to keep in mind. That is a long-term potential double bottom. Now, short-term, just very short-term, we have this potential double top. Very short-term. So that's something to watch for tomorrow morning, because then that would be a rotation back down from the 1 hour rotation zone. Other than that, from any short-term play for me, if the rally continues, would be to watch for this key resistance area. If that double does not have to fire, remember, it could just keep going. And up above here, you have this clear path move, and you technically have an unfilled gap up here. So if it does get a rally on, areas I'd be watching for a short would be up around 152.60 area with the declining 4 hour rotation zone. Daily, you have the rotation zone coming into that area. So that's what I'd be watching for. Not yet even oversold. And cycle still slightly heading lower. So that's where I'd be watching for a short play. Besides that little 15-minute. So that little 15-minute one would be a very short-term short play for it, and then it could still bounce off these lows. Now, if it breaks below those lows, let's just take a look. If it breaks below Friday's lows, it's still a potential valid double, but that really favors a retest. A retest of the, I just want to see, did we already hit that? It's got the close below 62.5. So this could easily still roll over and retest those lows probability wise. Even if it rallies up, it should theoretically retest the low area between 141.83 to about 139.14. even on a rally up. So the only thing that would then invalidate that is if you get some key closes back above this resistance area. Let's see. Mike, I've been watching the price action series on Path Trading YouTube playlist over the past few weeks. Can you touch on thought process of fast-moving price action on 5-minute time frame in harmonics? Seems like the harmonics help to find a level to look for a mean reversion trade. I'm trying to think if we had any fast-moving markets recently. Better to ask me that when we get something fast-moving, because we have. I mean, I really watch for momentum bars with this, so that's a little tricky to talk about right now because we had this little pop, but not enough of really fast markets recently. This was the fastest market we had. This little breakdown area. So this is where, you know, on 5 minutes, this little breakdown move is where I look to, if you're on the move, is where I like to use the harmonics to lower stops. And then see, this was so fast you had to go to the 1 minute, which I don't even know. Let's see my price action. Where is this? See, this is why it gets so tricky to answer these during. Here we go. So you see here we're breaking down with momentum, pausing right here, breaking down through that. So this, again, this is how I like to trail out, breaking down, and then you keep going, and then I start watching for the bigger retracements, lower stop, pausing bar right here. You even didn't get a pausing bar there, and I start watching for major reversals down near the harmonic. So here, spike through, reversal bar. Now I start like to shift to the retracements, and especially once we start getting price action, I don't really do it. Here we go. I start watching for bottom testing formations here with retracements, close above the 12.5 for a continued follow through bottom. Plus I look at other stuff. And then I also watch for these retracements on the pullback. And you see this pullback to the 50% level. Let me pull off these. See this? Remember, we start getting momentum bars off a low, pull back to that 50% level, and then I start watching for that rotation back up between the 50 and the 62.5. And this was really nice. If you just get something like a 1-bar pause like this, then I watch for a breakout play after it. But that's both momentum to the downside and how I do a little breakaway upside reversal. If we get another series of momentum bars at some point that you see during the day, that's where it gets really helpful to, I can show you intraday how I start watching for stuff. So during when we can cover that on a live stream, but this is, you know, this was really great momentum to the upside, but this is how I watch for key areas. Again, close there, spike through, holding this area. So definitely an area to raise up stops or take a partial profit. And then you just keep trailing it up with the momentum. So this is my next area I'm targeting. And we did get above it, but this is, I'm not trying to call the highs. This is a key area, and you see we stalled out sideways, dropped down, retesting that key area, because a lot of times momentum will overshoot your harmonics, especially short term, because it's momentum. That's why it's helpful to, and I don't mind if it overshoots, because you get to unwind into strength, okay? So you get to unwind into strength and move up a stop. And then you see how it overshot, but pausing just above it, coming back down and retesting that harmonic and then rolling over. So it gave you multiple chances to at least raise areas. And then this is also how you use the retracements, because I like to see where that's going to stall out. It just went above the 62.5, came back down, and then came up testing that 75. So this is still favors slightly higher price action, and this is actually going into, this is some intraday, this is normally shorter than I get through, but this still favors. Now the interesting thing is Sunday night futures are generally thinner, so, and we're going into an Asian session. Now, would this be just during regular trading hours or a more volatile session? This would definitely be a continued push higher. Why? We closed above the 62.5, we retraced, did not retest the lows, bouncing back up, and now we're back above that 62.5 again. So I'd be targeting the 75. Look at how the harmonics work. We got that 75% level right here, which it bounced off of prior to. Then we have it coming in with a significant level, this 45, 47. And then we have another significant level up here in the harmonic at 45.22. And the retest, once you get above 62.5, favors a retest of the 87.5 to 100% area. So there's some more little teaching stuff for you. That's why I'm actually, and then we have this potential bottoming bar with a 3-bar pullback. Is this guaranteed? No. But it has upside probabilities that we might have put in at least a short-term low. If now we need to trigger on follow through tomorrow morning in the US session, and the true buy patterns don't happen until above the highs. Well, this actually, did it trigger? Let me see. What was the high here? 45.38.50. 45.30. No, technically it closed right at that. So I'm still watching for a follow through buy tomorrow morning. When you say buy signal on a 4-hour or whatever the period may be, looking for the close above the prior candle, in terms of a %B, that is one of the entries on it. There are 3 different entries on it. That is one of them. But this technically is only a %B on the 4-hour. The daily would be on a close above Thursdays, or there's an alternative entry I just don't want to get into right now. All right. Anything else, anyone? With that, I think we shall call it an afternoon. Again, everyone have a fantastic rest of their evening. And I will see you tomorrow for the Monday morning market preview, 8 a.m. Just a reminder for the people who tune in for Bob, he will not be on Tuesday. He will be back on Thursday afternoon. Any news on the weekend session? I'm just waiting for more people to give me some feedback. And then we'll set up some recording time for doing some live things for people who want to get some more of the systematic rules and everything else. And by the way, that will be paid for. And if you stick on to Discord for more information. Until then, I will talk to everyone later. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.